Enhancement is one thing, but radical and fundamental redesign is another thing.
I'm Ben, and I've worked as a medical doctor in the UK for over 20 years now. In my specialty of intensive care medicine and anaesthesia, I've seen both the strength and the frailty of the human body. And I'm also a Christian, so I believe in life after death. And the combination of my job and my faith means that I am dead interested in this topic that we're going to be talking about in this series, which is, so you want to live forever? Through the ages, people have talked so much about what it might be to be superhuman, perhaps someone who's stronger or smarter or can live longer than the average human being can. But I'm not sure if that's possible, and I'm not sure if it's what I want. Professor John Lennox, it is absolutely brilliant to be with you in the spectacular Green Templeton College.
Welcome to my college, Ben.
Welcome to my world. Yeah, it's so great to be with you. Thank you. And we've got a really fascinating topic to look at today, which is the issue of transhumanism in the context of people wanting to live forever. And you come to this both as a professor of mathematics, but also as a philosopher and a theologian. So you're coming to it from a number of different angles, aren't you?
Yes, I am, because I'm deeply interested in it from the scientific perspective, but also from the philosophical and the moral and indeed the theological, because obviously it involves modifying human beings, and that has implications for who human beings really are.
Now, this has got a lot of personal concern for me as a doctor, because I'm worried that it's going to put me out of a job. Is that going to happen?
I'm very suspicious of the whole program, actually, and I suspect it may not put you out of a job. In fact, if they get it wrong, you'll have much more work to do repairing the damage that's done. But that's a very negative perspective.
And what things particularly interest you in this topic of transhumanism?
Well, the desire to re-engineer humans. That probably means modifying the germline. And that means that all human beings after our generation will be modified ones. And the question then is, are they really human beings? Because way back in the 1940s, C.S. Lewis, who saw this very clearly, said actually what that will mean is a small group of brilliant scientific people will program all generations to come so that they'll be less than human, they'll be artifacts. And he's got this chilling phrase where he says the final triumph of humanity will be the abolition of man.
Wow, yeah. I can see how it's a mix. It's great to look at eradicating disease through transhumanism.
Absolutely, yes.
And much that it seems like it's such a good idea, but maybe I hear you're arguing that taking it to excess is going to be potentially dangerous.
I think that's the problem. Enhancement is one thing, but radical and fundamental redesign is another thing. Let me read you something, Ben. Famous entomologist E.O. Wilson said this: the real problem of humanity is the following. We have Paleolithic emotions, medieval institutions, and godlike technology, and it's terrifically dangerous. Until we answer those huge questions of philosophy that the philosophers abandoned a couple of generations ago, where do we come from? Who are we? Where are we going? Rationally, we're on very thin ground. Actually, I think that Wilson's being unfair to philosophers. I know many philosophers who've not forgotten these big questions, but we need to face those questions.
Are you suggesting that we need to look at these bigger questions about this scientific speciality before we actually go and do the science?
I do, because there's precedent in the past. Think of the eugenics experiments in Nazi Germany, but they weren't only there to create a new race, a super Aryan race. Or think of the attempt to create a new man in Soviet Russia. Trotsky, way back, 1923, suggested making a Superman. That attempt on very feeble science led to millions of deaths. Because if you take Hitler, what he was doing was applying the survival of the fittest to the human race. Now we've got all this sophisticated stuff, and we need to think very carefully about those big questions. Where do I come from? Where am I going? And what is the meaning of life?
And by that, do you mean, where do you come from? Where do you go? Where are you going to, Cotton Eye Joe?
No. I didn't mean that.
And so, John, really just to wrap up, you're saying that transhumanism is good in some ways, but when it's taken to excess, it's dangerous because we're essentially making ourselves less human? Is that right?
I'd put it slightly differently. It's one thing to enhance people and develop new drugs, vaccines, and help reduce aging, all of that, and many diseases. Transhumanism is the whole deal, the total modification that people are aiming for, turning us into little gods, as Harari suggests.
John, where does the word transhumanism come from? Because I heard it was devised by an atheist. Is that correct?
No, it's not actually. The irony is that it first appeared in the English translation of Dante's Paradiso, where he's talking about his own hope of being raised from the dead as a Christian. And he says something like this: words cannot tell of that transhuman change. So actually it has Christian origins, not atheist origins.
Amazing. Prof, it's always a joy to talk to you. Thank you for educating me over many years, and you've done it again today. So thank you so much.
My pleasure. Questions of philosophy. I can't say it. Oh dear, I can't say it. I shouldn't have looked up. I looked up at you.
All this talk of death and dying and eternal life is quite extraordinary. There's no denying that. So that's why I'd love you to join us for the rest of the series, when I'm going to be interviewing a whole load of friends and colleagues about death and dying and eternal life from multiple different worldviews. And hopefully you will see that there is light in the darkness. There's also tons of resources to find out more on the OCCA website, which can be found at www.theocca.org. Hopefully see you soon.